Hello, this is Dr. Kurt Stahura. I am the NGTI scholar here at TReC that sits on the international border between the United States and Canada, which is presently closed, but we're easing into policies that might suggest its opening in the near future. I also am a professor within the College of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Niagara University. This is part of our tourism shorts. It's also part of a study that's being conducted on the feasibility of really tourism and other entities in Niagara Falls, which could lend themselves to a brighter future. But we'll talk more about that moving forward. Today, we are very, very lucky to have Roscoe Naggit, who is the Assistant Director of TReC, where the NGTI is housed. And we're going to talk to him about COVID and some of the entities from his truly unique perspective as the Assistant Director here at the NGTI. He also sits on a variety of boards that are tourism and business related and lend themselves to economic development. So we're excited to have him here, and he does a tremendous job here. I see it on a daily basis. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to kind of discuss what we've been seeing over the last 18 months. It's been a very diverse discussion from different lenses.
It sure is. And I guess question number one is, how has COVID affected TReC? Given that it's, and I think this might be a really neat opportunity to talk about TReC and its role within the community too.
So TReC itself operates as a co-working and business incubation space. So co-working, pretty much anybody with an open idea can come to TReC and help develop their idea into a launchable business. That's on the incubation side. Co-working itself, it's open space. You can bring a laptop, connect to Wi-Fi, and it's productive open space for professionals, freelancers, entrepreneurs, you name it. It's just a platform for folks. So COVID itself has had a large impact on TReC operations, as it has with any industry, with any organization. So as an organization, as a facility, we had a ribbon cutting in November 2019. And our really first full operational day was late January 2020. So we started to build a lot of density into the space. And then when COVID hit, or at least the closures hit late March, early April, everything bottomed out. Mm-hmm. So we were building that density, and all of a sudden, it was gone in a heartbeat. In talking about tourism in itself, TReC is considered a co-working space and amenity for business travelers. So when I travel for business, or when I used to travel for business before COVID, when I would go to a city, I would typically seek out co-working spaces because, one, it's a productive space to do work, take a meeting, do some light work, because as a traveler, you can only do so much in your hotel room.
Right.
And also, some of the hotels I've traveled to, they're shifting away from the business center model within the hotel because they want to turn that space into some place where they could actually sell goods and services to bring in more revenue for the facility. So co-working spaces have been a great addition and a great option for business travelers as far as getting a productive space, but also it's a way for travelers to network and meet with locals to find out about what there is to do and see in the area. Mm-hmm. Typically when you're traveling, you want to know where the locals go, what's the authentic experience, and right. Co-working spaces in different cities give you that perfect blend of locals and entrepreneurs that can give you recommendations typically off the beaten path, but really enhance your experience. But going back to COVID, so TReC was shut down because of the closures. We reopened in June, but it was in the height of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So realistically, we knew that the borders were closed, travel wasn't really happening, and to be honest, nobody was coming back to the space. Right. And it slowly started to get better in the fall because the numbers started to go down as far as infections rates and everything else. And then when Thanksgiving hit, numbers started to skyrocket again, and we bottomed out again towards the end of the year. 2021 has been a really good opportunity for us because as vaccinations are rolling out, restrictions are being eased, folks are feel more comfortable to travel. We've actually been increasing density in the space for 2021. So we've had some ups and downs like everybody else, sure. but luckily 2021, with the improvements in how the pandemic is going, I know we're not done with it. We're hopefully at the tail end of it, that we're seeing more density in the space, and hopefully we're getting more of that activity back from entrepreneurs, from organizations coming back to utilize TReC, but also for business travelers, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, and with the changing climate of how people are working,
Correct.
this is positioned nicely with that in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sad to call it a silver lining, but because of COVID, numerous businesses have shifted parts or percentages of their office to folks working remotely. And with that sense, if I'm an organization that previously rented out an office that housed 20 people in person, and now half of those folks are now, or more than half, are now working remotely indefinitely, I don't need an entire space with the overhead of rent, utilities, and everything else. Co-working space has become much more advantageous economically, but it's also a great way to get your branding out. For individuals who have switched to remote working, I myself tried remote working for a couple of weeks, and you kind of go a little bit crazy sitting in your living room in your private office 5 days a week. So it's also become an option for folks working remotely where they can change up their settings and their surroundings 1 to 2 days a week, where co-working has been a great option for them. So it's sad to call it a silver lining, but it is an opportunity for us moving forward.
Speaking of the silver lining, the other folks that I've spoken to in this platform, I asked them, were there any positives that came of COVID? Because given the transitions into a non-centric working environment,
Mm-hmm.
that made them think about their own infrastructure differently, and even their products and the way they were distributing products. Has TReC pivoted as a result of this new way of thinking
Yep.
as well?
Absolutely. So, TReC was originally designed to be an in-person setting. I'm a face-to-face type of person. I love technology, but at the end of the day, for me, nothing really is ever going to beat a face-to-face interaction. But with COVID and the closures, we shifted to an all-virtual offering. And, when restrictions and numbers started to get better, we went to a hybrid setting. I think the hybrid model is here to stay,
Mm-hmm.
because there are always now going to be individuals who feel more comfortable joining us online, but also people have learned that you can be productive in a virtual setting. Not everybody, but people have learned that there are some folks who can do the work and still get things done virtually, that I think it's a good option for us to always offer with programs and events, because you can have sometimes it's not a genuine interaction because you're talking to a screen and you're looking for a mic to talk to when you're trying to interact with somebody. But I think as just an open way of communication and presenting engagements, I think hybrid's here to stay for us.
Sure. And of course, TReC has adjusted from a technology standpoint and can accommodate that.
Yeah, we were one of the few lucky ones that we always utilized technology. We just really didn't know how much we'd really rely on it during the pandemic, to where a mic or a camera was just something you had whenever you needed it. You use it once a month, once every couple of weeks, to now we were using it every single day from multiple formats. We kind of played around. It's a hit or miss. It's a rate of error when you're trying to figure out how audio and video works,
Mm-hmm.
but it's given us a lot of practice, and it's really expanded what we can offer moving forward to not just members, but also as a platform for members of the Niagara Falls community.
Sure. How is TReC going to be different? I know you've answered some of these questions. And Niagara Falls is going to be different in the interactions therein in a post-COVID world. What do you see the future of Niagara Falls, for instance?
I think on a tourism perspective, I think COVID really exposed some deficiencies
Mm-hmm.
in our industry. Technology is one piece, to where we went from a very in-person, face-to-face kind of approach to where, when shutdowns happened and reopen started to happen again, technology should have been a focal point.
Sure.
And it showed the larger organizations were able to pivot because they had the resources, they just had the bandwidth to do so, to take advantage of kind of technological advances. Some of our support services from our local businesses really didn't have that luxury. So for a local restaurant, to where your density was based on physical people sitting in your space, so you were shut down, you were allowed to reopen with random rules and regulations.
Which were evolving and
It changed
yeah,
weekly,
that's
daily.
right.
They were doing it trial by error, and I get it. People were feeling through how the reopening process would look like. They were allowed to reopen, but it wasn't a dine-in; it was now takeout. So, how do you take advantage of technology to be able to still engage with your customers? And some businesses, once again, didn't have the resources, didn't have the know-how to be able to utilize technology, to be able to utilize different online platforms to really reach out to their customers, or even to engage customers when they actually wanted to purchase goods and services. I think it's an opportunity moving forward to take inventory of those businesses that were struggling to adjust to a digital online world, to whether it's a collaboration between TReC, the City of Niagara Falls, and the tourism industry to help those businesses get on platforms like Yelp, get on platforms like Google My Business, just simple things that we take for granted working in technology every day that could be such a boost for local businesses. And we've been lucky enough that we've had some good startup companies out of TReC who have offered their services for free to a lot of businesses to help them pivot to that technology approach. Something that really was more evident during the pandemic was the real value of customer service. We went from, once again, customer service is very front facing. It's those critical touch points in the visitor experience are obviously very important. So we went through our shutdowns, travel stopped or ceased, and then when things started to reopen, you had travelers coming back or visitors coming back, but there is that apprehension now of, am I coming into a safe space? You're already getting customers that are somewhat stressed because of the situation they're coming back into, and I think we undervalued the just being able to see a smile on someone's face. If you're somebody working at a front desk at a hotel, those types of interactions with customers we kind of took for granted because all of a sudden when they came back, now everybody has a mask on their face. So how do you ease the tensions of maybe a customer coming in? Now you have a mask in place, and typically, how do you have those physical cues now to ease that person, but also to improve the visitor experience? So I think, once again, it heightened the sense of how we need to train for customer service, because I go to certain places and the mask is there, but then I love the fact that some places understood that body language, when you're interacting with a customer, plays a huge role in that interaction. Some places really didn't understand that because right now, smiling at somebody does so much for the interaction, but now you have a mask on. How do they get the vibe from that interaction? How do they get a vibe from that experience? Body language plays such a key role, and I think moving forward, it's evident that some organizations really could utilize re-engaging those customer service training points to their staff, because it's just a critical engagement piece for clients.
No question. What's neat is psychologically, I think people are looking to the future right now as things start to reopen and as we're seeing people's faces. What are some of the things that you think were holding Niagara Falls back that now people are reconsidering as they look to the future?
I think multiple things. I think I've been in Niagara Falls and in this region for 20 years. I went to college at Niagara University early 2000s, and I've been working in and around the industry for almost 10 years now. First and foremost, it's the stigma against Niagara Falls, that nothing ever happens here, that all we do is bicker, and I think that's an unfair stigma, that's an unfair assessment of Niagara Falls and the industry in general. My experience in this region or in this city is the fact that actually quite the opposite. One of the things actually holding us back is not that we were always arguing all the time, it's just that we didn't talk enough. Starting off here, realizing that there are organizations that have been working in the same 2 or 3 block radius for multiple years and even a decade that never talk with each other.
Sure. And
when you're looking at the industry, tourism as a whole, you're looking at an ecosystem. So those pieces have to be able to communicate with each other. So I think the biggest misconception that's been hurting Niagara Falls is that we just argue all the time, nothing ever happens. It's shifted to more, we just never talked enough, and now you've seen more and more of that open communication. And granted, it's not going to be a smooth communication, right? There's all these different factors that happen in economic development and developing a city that sometimes aren't going to see eye to eye, but we're at least talking to each other. That's the first step to getting anything done, is let's get around a table. Doesn't matter who convenes it, but let's get around the table and put it all out and say, here are our concerns as as a city, a county, a state, as private industry, as different stakeholders, and let's put it out on the table and let's come up with a definitive, not even a definitive, but let's just come up with a narrative of what we want to see moving forward. So that's, I think, something that I've seen, a stigma, but that's been improving in my tenure here. I'm pretty sure it was improving before I got here, but I've really seen that communication open up to where, once again, it's not always going to be we're going to hold hands and sing kumbaya for that type of conversation, but those are tough conversations that have been happening to be able to move not just the industry, but the city forward.
Sure.
Another piece for that, I think, would be just the tenets of a destination, the baselines. I look at baselines for a destination, aesthetics, cleanliness, proper lighting, just to promote that air of safety for visitors. And I think that was lacking in the past. But I think the previous administration, the current administration have seen that those are baselines that you have to have in every destination. You can build the nicest hotel that you want, but then if the lights on the street are always out, if the streets are dirty, if the lawns aren't cut, you're killing that visitor experience before visitors even start their trip. So if your visitors coming on board to your city and there's garbage everywhere, once again, the lawn isn't cut, or if they're staying in a hotel and they like to explore the rest of the city, but half the lights on the street are out, that perception of safety with lighting.
It's the broken window idea.
We overlook that, but when I look out a window and I see, if I'm a visitor in a city and I see half the street lights are out and I'm with my family, I don't want to leave that's perceived safety when it comes to lighting. So I appreciate the fact that the previous and current administrations identified those needs, and granted, there's always budget concerns because nothing is free. And but being able to recognize that those are baselines that we have to address, along with talking about attractions and building amenities in the area, but having those things identified and saying, okay, we're working towards addressing that year after year, and obviously you adjust for whatever is in the budget, but having those continuously addressed throughout the couple of years has been a good positive for seeing the outlook for this industry.
The other thing that I'm observing is that those conversations are happening here. And what's neat about TReC is that this is a neutral space. It's Switzerland.
Absolutely.
And it's a common destination where people feel comfortable. So speaking to comfort, you talked about some aesthetic things and micro level things. Are there macro things that need to happen from organizationals? Are there certain organizations that need to speak to each other to make some of these things happen now that may have not have been talking in the past?
I think for the majority of time that I've been here, the conversations have been happening, but just not frequently enough. The discussion of addressing winter has been something that I've Pat Whalen from NGTI has been a proponent of addressing winter in Niagara Falls, and that should be our key thing, and he's right, and it's been good to see that being resonated in how things are planned. When
you say winter, some of our viewers are asking, probably thinking, what do you mean winter? So winter is critical because?
Well, so for Niagara Falls, peak season, we call it peak season, or the golden season, whatever folks want to call it, starts from Memorial Day to Labor Day, maybe a little bit after Labor Day, where it's warm weather, people are outside, people can view the falls and all that, and that's where the majority of our visitation comes from. The winter time is typically when that visitation number, the numbers just fall off, because realistically, in the dead of December or January, the falls are amazing to look at, but if it's 10 degrees outside, you can only do that for a short period of time. Sure. And our hotels suffer from that seasonality because they're seeing 90+% occupancy in hotels. Local businesses, we're seeing those customers come through their local restaurants, but in the wintertime, occupancy at hotels drop to 10-15%. So you're losing a lot of that revenue in the wintertime, to where it hurts for development. It hurts local businesses because, once again, you can't keep staffing levels up because the revenue isn't up.
Right.
If you're trying to promote tourism and hospitality as a career pathway, a year-long job, it's almost impossible to keep pushing that when you're hiring thousands of new folks in the spring, late spring, early summer, and then you're laying a majority of off come the winter time. it doesn't do justice for sustainability for the region.
Sure.
So for the long-term approach really is addressing the winter, and I've seen it over the last couple of years where it's the chicken or the egg, right? You build stuff, like how do you finance attractions? You need indoor winter attractions, but nobody, as far as I know, nobody has a rich uncle that's just going to drop hundreds of millions of dollars and just build stuff in Niagara Falls. You have to show some sort of density in lieu of physical attractions or physical structures. You have to show some sort of density to the events and programming. You got to get people, have investors look at, oh, there's something going on in the middle of winter. We can build that density here. It makes it more attractive for folks to say, maybe I can survive in the business 12 months out of Niagara Falls. So,
and staff accordingly.
Absolutely. So over the last couple of years, and once again, COVID's really thrown a wrench for everybody's scheduling, but in the wintertime, we have Jingle Falls in Niagara Falls. But before I started here, winter was, the approach was the golden season, the peak season. We are going to make as much money as we can. We're gonna get fat and be healthy and be happy. And then when the winter hit, we're gonna shutter our doors and hope that we survive the winter just to make it to the next peak season.
The squirrel approach.
Yeah, and glad to see. And that's been horrible for local businesses, because you have generations of Niagara Falls residents and non-residents who have poured in their life savings into building small businesses that are dependent on this tourism industry, this year-round tourism industry, that with that approach, they were suffering. They were prospering 5 months out of the year, but they were suffering the other 7. So the approach of now, especially with Jingle Falls, of at least trying to create some kind of activity for the downtown, for the tourism area, for local businesses is the wintertime. It's seeing that change in mindset of how we approach winter, whether we just hide from it or whether let's tackle it head on, how we can get creative with addressing the winter. And hopefully from that, post-COVID, we can continue that and hopefully show that, hey, we can build density in Niagara Falls in the winter. It is someplace where you could build something that can be sustainable and profitable 12 months out of the year. And from then, hopefully, spur on some actual attractions, year-round indoor attractions that are being built in the city.
And there are places that have weather like Niagara Falls that have done it successfully. And there are templates out there, and we can learn from those things as well.
Yeah, it's all about the mindset and how you approach what's coming. If all you're going to do is continuously hide from it and hope that you survive a winter, that's not a sustainable thing for an industry. But a lot of places have embraced the winter. Granted, we know it's cold. There's the factor you have of being outside for only a short amount of time, but there are places that have embraced it, whether it's once again things like Jingle Falls, or having, I think New York State Parks put out some RFPs for winter type activities. Sure. The goal of it is really getting people in the city, but also while they're here, getting them to extend their stay. Right. When they extend their stay, the key is always heads and beds, people staying in hotel rooms overnight. But in that extending your stay, you are going to local businesses in the city.
Yeah, it's a multiplying effect.
Yep, you're finding things on 3rd Street, you're finding things on Pine Avenue and Hyde Park. And it really goes back to the more you extend their stay, you have to help visitors find the essence of Niagara Falls. What are the awesome things here to see, and what are the great places to visit, places to go eat? And those are the things that really make that visitor experience, as you get an authentic Niagara Falls experience. You only get that if we make opportunities for both folks to extend their stay while they're here.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a wonderful opportunity to chat with you. I know you're on committees and you see Niagara Falls through a very unique lens, and you're excellent at your job. It's great to work here with you. So we've had an opportunity to chat with Roscoe Naggit, and we're excited to continue having people that talk about Niagara Falls and tourism from a variety of different perspectives. I think the last thing is, could we talk about how people could get in touch with TReC, those that are coming from outside of the area that might be able to utilize the services in this great facility?
Oh, perfect timing. So we're actually doing a website redesign, working with WorkBee design company with Lisa Scirocco. So it's trecbynGTI.com. Folks can come in. We offer day passes. You'll be here for longer. If you're a visitor, here for a business meeting, if you're somebody in the community with an idea to start a business, as members, TReC is open 24/7, 365. So people are productive at different times of the day. We want to make sure we facilitate that productivity for our members. But The website is always the best place to visit. All our contact information is there. There's a couple of forms where you can reach out to us for more information. And for visitors or anybody in the local community, we're always open for tours of the space.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
This
for
has been
having
a
me.
treat. And if you have any additional questions for Roscoe or any of the tourism shorts that we had up until this point, please leave the questions at the bottom of the screen or get in touch with us. And as has happened in the past, sometimes those questions yield future presentations. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.